Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of The Guys Who Stare at Stats. I'm Cade Kennedy, and Connor Gray and Andrew Santangelo will join me shortly. Now, of course, as you know, it has been a wild week of sports here all across the U.S., whether it be the Chiefs getting upset by Cincinnati at Arrowhead, or whether it be the Niners seemingly collapsing in the final few minutes to give the Rams their second Super Bowl appearance in only a few years. It really has been a crazy time, and today especially, just an insane day of news being broken, rumors continuing to fly rampant. Seems to be just another day in sports. However, there's one thing we do not talk about enough on this program, and that is the team that plays only a minute or two away from our studio. That's right, today I'll be talking about our team, the Northwestern Oklahoma State Rangers. Now, the Rangers have been on a roll for the past few weeks as the Rangers try to cement themselves at the top of the GAC. Tonight, I'll be discussing how they've done it, as well as what lies ahead for them. On Thursday night, the Rangers defeated the Bull Weevils of Arkansas Monticello by a score of 74-61. However, just like every game in the GAC, it wasn't easy. This one was a bit easier than others, though, and that's for one main thing. That is the performance of Bubba Furlong, who had 32 points, a career high. It's not something he's done. His previous career high was 22, whether it be his playing days at Sam Houston State or here. This is quite possibly this is quite honestly the best performance we have ever seen from him. I mean, it was a solid day all around from everyone. Larry White having a big day. Once again, it seems he has a lot of big days now. One of the star players, I guess you could say, for this Ranger team. But the main thing I want to talk about, this article here, RideRangersRide.com, Andrew Santangelo here, as it is Northwestern returns home with a third straight victory. This is the third win in a row. The Rangers had previously gotten wins over Harding and trying to remember who the other one was, but the Harding one was the main one I want to talk about, though. It was the 83-80 win over the Bison. It was 83-70. Arkansas Tech was the other one. Excuse me for getting that messed up a little bit. But those were just two incredible road wins that the Rangers had, and they weren't done yet. They came home, they defeated Southern Arkansas in what was a big win for them, 71-66, before getting a 71-55 win on the road against Arkansas Monticello again. And then a quote here from a Northwestern News article I have from Jordan Franz, who's the associate head coach of the Rangers, kind of a difference there. Vinay Patel, of course, the head coach, Jordan Franz, the associate, so they're kind of almost two head coaches, if you will, instead of a main head coach and a main assistant coach. But Coach Franz, I interviewed him for a story in the Northwestern News, and it states here explicitly, the biggest thing about this team is that we're tough. We're a very tough team, and we've played really, really hard. I think that shows the main grit of the Rangers. This is a team that's going to just play great defense. They've locked people down the entire year, and they can score at will. They've scored 80 points. They've scored 71 in their past few games. They're usually a team that's going to put a lot of points on the board. They're going to play good defense. This is exactly what they want to do. And, I mean, they're going to have to continue to do it because Thursday night, weather permitting, we might get to that in a moment here, but weather permitting, Northwestern goes down to Weatherford Thursday night to take on Southwestern, what is always a big game. I mean, the Northwestern Rangers, the Southwestern Bulldogs, it's a classic rivalry out here in western Oklahoma, I guess you could say. But the last time these two played, it was a Southwestern win in another article, once again by Andrew Santangelo, that we found here on RideRangersRide.com. It was Northwestern Falls, Thursday evening at home. Southwestern defeated Northwestern. What was a big upset on the men's side. Northwestern just continues to need to play well, I think, and I think the main takeaway with the Southwestern game coming up as well as Saturday against East Central, the main takeaway is the Rangers are on the right track. I really do believe that. They're battling for the third, fourth spot right now in the GAC. They continue to play well, but they're going to have to make a big run here. They're going to have to make a big push. They have a lot of winnable games still going on. They have a nice stretch, I think. They already have a 5-game win streak currently. But if they can keep it up, I really sincerely believe that the Rangers have a really good shot to make the NCAA playoffs this year, which would be the first time that's ever happened in the history of the program. They've never made the playoffs since joining the NCAA, since joining Division II. I really think this is the team that has all the tools necessary to get that done. We thank you for sticking around so far, and when we come back, Connor Gray will be here. We're still waiting to see if Andrew Santangelo will get here or not. We hope he is. Like to see him here. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got NFL playoffs coming up. We've got a little bit maybe of NBA, a little bit of NHL, a little bit of college football. Got Caleb Williams news going on still. Feels like that's been going on for a month. But if you've liked what you've seen so far, continue to support us by watching the stream, first of all, giving us a follow here on Twitch, subscribing to our YouTube channel, that's NWTV7, and maybe giving us a follow as well on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Once again, that is NWTV7 on most social media platforms. So as I welcome Connor Gray now into the show, as he can come in, we've got to get started with what I think is the main thing to talk about here, and that is, well, Kansas City. I know this is not what you wanted to get into, but the Chiefs obviously playing the Bengals 27-24. Chiefs have a 21-3 lead. I know. I mean, we can't see your face right now. We'll get the camera fixed here in a moment, but it's not a good look. Not a happy time for the Chiefs.
Nope, not at all. I don't know where to get on this. This game basically played out like Week 17. It pretty much was just completely just I understand like Cade's gonna go fix the camera a bit, but yeah. Chiefs basically had the same predicament. They jumped up big on the Bengals early in the first half and basically kept that lead. And Bengals did something near the end of the first half to keep the game relatively close. All the Chiefs have to do is practically just, pretty much just score before the end of the first half to at least get some distance. Instead of kicking a field goal to at least, hey, we got some points going into the half, you proceed to go for it and flat out fail instead of going to the end zone, which you could have probably kept a second or two on the clock. You just throw to Tyreek Hill and he doesn't get out of bounds to even remotely stop the clock.
To answer your question real quick, I am still here. I'm just a voice right now in the void. But Mike and Perkins, yes, sadly, there was indeed a second half of that Chiefs-Bengals game, unfortunately.
Yeah, and pretty much that speaks for itself because if you're a Chiefs fan, we practically did nothing with the ball. The offense proceeded to implode on itself and not know what to do. Oh, my God, it's frustrating talking about it.
Yeah, I really do understand. I mean, it's not a fun time anytime your team loses.
But to continue that, Chiefs pretty much just do nothing with the ball. The entire second half, nothing. The offense doesn't know how to do anything. Mahomes, as I love him, but that's just something you just can't do. You can't make those mistakes. Those costly interceptions sets the Bengals up to pretty much do it because the defense was actually doing, I'd say, a solid job of keeping them from really getting, because they only scored like 2 touchdowns in the second half.
Yeah,
but it's like all the Chiefs do is just make sure they do not. All the Chiefs have to do is just make sure to get some points on the board, at least a touchdown. If they get a touchdown, that game never goes to overtime. You win the game. The game was in your back pocket. Instead, you pretty much just do nothing with it.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things, though. It really was one of those games where it felt like the first half, everything went right. Almost everything the Chiefs wanted to do, they could do. They could run the ball, they could throw the ball, whatever they needed to do, they did. I think the main kind of switch in the game, I guess you could say, the main turning point was right at the end. It's 21-10, about to go into halftime, and the Chiefs have 5 seconds left. They just need to try to get it into the end zone. And they throw the little pass to Tyreek Hill.
And it was that's what didn't make any sense, was that they throw that little pass on the side and proceed to instead of going toward the end zone. If he just tries to at least throw to someone in the end zone, the worst that could happen is that it gets picked off in the back of the end zone. But no one's going to be able to get down the field in time to score at all. But it's like, actually, that's either way. What happened was really bad. What you needed to happen was either a ball gets batted down so you at least can kick a field goal, or you get a touchdown out of it. And that just doesn't happen because for some odd reason, Mahomes chose not to go toward the end zone. Instead, he chose to go up the side.
Yeah, and that was the one thing I was reading, that the Bengals players, they felt that once they got that stop, they carried that momentum into the second half with them. They knew that was going to be the main turning point of the game. They could feel it. They come out, get a defensive stop, and that was kind of something I really did not expect the Bengals defense to play that well in the second half.
If anyone would have told you prior, before the game, that the Bengals would have had more sacks than the Chiefs, I would. Most people would have laughed in your face, because that Bengals offensive line is paper mache. It is not that good, but they looked like $1 million offensive line. They kept Burrow protected, or at least best they could, because he never got sacked.
Yeah, that was the other thing that was really surprising to me, was also I could not believe the amount of space sometimes Burrow had on some of those throws. He'd have 1 second, 2 second, 3 second. He's just starting to dance around in the pocket, and you're just like, what the? You're not supposed to have an offensive line.
Problem is, it's like Chris Jones could probably get through there, and he misses, and then there's no one else there. It's like he's the only one who's actually getting back there, and then it's like no one else is there. And Burrow just has all that time in the world. I mean, that credit where credit is due. They played better football in that second half. Were they the better team? I don't believe so, but they deserved to win more than the Chiefs did, and they did.
That is true.
As someone who's more of a fan of the AFC than the NFC, go kitty, go meow.
Yeah, as Tom Grossi and Brandon Perna and pretty much what seems to be the big alliance, I guess, the 5 clickbait sports people, kitty goes meow. That has become a running joke throughout the entire community. I mean, uniting almost every big sports YouTuber pretty much at this point.
Yep.
Everyone's jumping on the Bengals hype train.
And I'm a believer with that,
Yeah.
But of course, regards to like obviously you got your Super Bowl matchup, you got Bengals versus Rams, you have probably arguably the most likable quarterback matchup in a while. I mean, you have Matthew Stafford and Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow being Joe Burrow, his swag, and also being on a Bengals team that everyone was like, oh my God, go Bengals! Because they've been so miserable for years, and then obviously everyone wanted to see Matt Stafford actually get his dues and actually be on a good team, and look where he is.
Yeah, one stat I was reading that was pretty funny. Matt Stafford has played in 6 playoff games. 0-3 as the quarterback of Detroit. 3-0 as the quarterback of the Rams. All it took was a change of scenery to prove what I think most people who followed the NFL already knew, which is Matt Stafford's a good quarterback. You just need to give him a team with talent around it, and he'll perform as well as you want him to.
It's like the one thing I would think was detriment to Detroit, especially in those years where they would go to the playoffs, is that they didn't have a defense. Their defense wasn't really that good. I mean, they had a couple of players, like I know Monsu. I can't say his name.
That'd be Ndamukong Suh.
Yes, him. When they had him, but obviously he wasn't in Detroit for very long because of his problems. But now he's in Tampa and has a Super Bowl ring. But it's like pretty much it was just for years. It was just Matt Stafford and Megatron, Calvin Johnson. It was just him, and they were obviously made that offense great, but it was like, I wonder when Stafford's actually going to get broken by that system. And it was like pretty much happened the year before he went to Detroit, and now he's with a better team. But obviously,
yeah.
But let's probably discuss that Niners and Rams game.
Yeah, that's where I was slowly getting to with this.
Our camera and our thing froze.
Yeah, and it appears our camera has frozen here. We do apologize for that. It is completely – well, here's the good thing. We made it through the first part of our show. That was the important part. We at least got this start. I think our camera's going to move south as well. It knows this winter storm is supposed to be coming in. I think it's trying to hibernate or go south or whatever it is. So we're going to get ready. We're going to kind of switch gears here, I guess, in terms of camera equipment because I do not know why it is doing this. Technical difficulty strike again. That's the only thing I can think of at this point. Let me see if I can just change a little something here real quick. Let's just see if I can blow this logo up. We're just going to do a little maneuvering here. This is what we call a pro gamer move. So this is going to look really wonky and awkward, and we do apologize for that. But our camera made it 15 whole minutes, and then it decided it does not want to work anymore. Do not know why, but it is not cooperating. Worse. There we go. We're going to just kind of stick with that for now. Yeah, the camera went with the Chiefs win. The camera is, I guess, a Chiefs fan. It's not happy.
Yeah.
This camera does not want to be here. I'll tell you that much.
It really doesn't want to be here.
Yeah, this has definitely been an interesting start to our stream today. I mean, 15 minutes in, we have a camera that decides it doesn't want to work anymore. Both cameras have failed on us. But I guess maybe it didn't want to talk about the Rams game, but we're going to anyway. So Apologies for the technical difficulties. We did not expect that to happen. But this Rams-Niners game was a really intriguing one in that this felt like a typical Niners playoff game. For 3 quarters, it felt like San Francisco was going to do it again.
Yeah, it was basically the game that the Niners wanted. A tough ground out, which wear down our opponent drying this game out. Garoppolo, for the most part, was playing good football. Like, he wasn't turning the ball over. The run game was actually, well, it seemed like the run game wasn't there statistically. It was like they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're working this game into their favor by basically their defense stopping the Rams. Then, for some reason, in the fourth quarter, things just did not go the way they were supposed to.
Yeah, things just started to change, basically, is the best way to put it. The Rams were able to march on and make the adjustments they needed to. They were able to get stops on Garoppolo. San Francisco couldn't capitalize. The Rams continued to slowly march down the field as Andrew Santangelo joins us. Maybe he was the bringer of change. He walks in. The camera died 2 minutes ago. I don't know what's going on here today, but Andrew, welcome to the show. Welcome. I can't remember if this is the first time with the new setup or not, but
this is the first time with the new setup.
All right. Well, welcome aboard. We just got done talking about Chiefs Bengals. We're on the Niners Rams right now, so kind of put you on the spot a little bit, I guess, but it was an interesting game for sure.
Yeah, my first words are Jimmy Garoppolo did what he does best at the end of that game. Never been a big Jimmy Garoppolo fan.
Never been a big Jimmy G fan.
I've always thought he's been like the luckiest quarterback in the NFL, and his luck ran out this year. If he would have made his second Super Bowl in 3 years, it would have drove me crazy because I really don't think he's anything special behind there.
I will say that as much as people are really not for Garoppolo, I'm like, a lot of these, like, there's many key situations throughout the playoffs. If it wasn't for him, they wouldn't have gotten as far as they did. But I will say he's been a detriment to that team for the most part. He's really been turnover prone, and he didn't play like he did like a couple years ago, where he played really good football for the most part. That's always been his 1 year. But the thing is, he's only had 1 year where he's been truly healthy the entire time. This year, he was out for about 5-6 weeks, and then he came back, still played decent, like better than most average quarterbacks, but even then it's not good, and I think this is the last year we'll see of Garoppolo in a Niners uniform.
No, I agree with that, and I think that's my big. I mean, like you said, he missed 5-6 weeks, and they were still able to stay above water, still make the playoffs, still be the 6th seed. So even if they didn't expand the playoffs, they still would have been in there. So again, to me, that just shows how he's replaceable. He's their quarterback, he's a game manager, and I think eventually caught up to him. But also, I love that Rams team. I think I mean, we talked about it a lot this year, is how good the NFC West was, and we figured them or the Cardinals would get out of there and get to the Super Bowl, and it ends up being the Rams. And I mean, I think we're set up for a lot of fun come Super Bowl Sunday.
It will definitely be a fun one. But the main thing I saw when I woke up Monday morning I saw a lot of people clowning on Jimmy G, which was expected. I mean, you can replay that interception at the end of the game all you want and point to what in the world is he doing, and I think that's a fair assessment. But the one that I really didn't get was a lot of people pointing to that dropped interception with 10 minutes left in the game, where a lot of people are like, they make that pick, they win the game. Well, I'm not entirely certain that happens. I think you can make that interception still, just the way momentum is already starting to go in that game. You could feel the Rams were starting to get an effort going there. I think it delays it, and it would have made it an even more last-second finish, but I'm not so sure about that one.
I do think if they get the interception, they go on and win that game. I think they have the lead already. They protect the lead at that point. The Rams don't drive down the field. So I really think with that interception, they probably do go on. Is it a given as some people make it out to seem? No,
Yeah.
Absolutely not. It's just like the Dez Bryant catch. Everyone makes it look like, if they call it a catch, they're going to win the game. Well, Aaron Rodgers would have got the ball back with plenty of time to go down the field and get a field goal.
Yeah.
There's still plenty of time left in that game. Just like that play, even if they get the interception, the Rams' defense was obviously playing well that game. They could have easily got a stop, if not a turnover as well, and put them right back in position to score. So, do they go on to win the game? I would say I'd lean yes because they'd have all the momentum and still protect the lead and use that run game that has been strong. But no.
Yeah, because like that Niners offense, like they're not going to be in any hurry to really do anything with the clock. It'd basically be on the Rams to try whatever to stop to keep as much time on the clock as possible because Niners are just going to run.
Yeah, they're just going to run their offense. They're going to just take their sweet time.
As long as they don't have Jimmy G throw twice on a first set of downs.
You never know. The way the coaching was going in that game, Sean McVay deciding, you know what, I don't need challenges, and Kyle Shanahan being, Kyle Shanahan at times. That coaching battle was interesting for sure.
I will say, did you see the Kyle Shanahan stat? I think with him, either the head coach or the offensive coordinator, I think in the fourth quarter, he's being outscored 52-0. I think.
Oof.
Oh man! And I think half of that's from the it feels like half of those points are from the Patriots, but that's not true.
Let me find that tweet to make sure I'm saying the right stat, but it was close to 52-0.
Yeah, for those of us just joining us in, though, we are having technical difficulties. We've got a winter storm that's supposed to come in. My working theory is the camera decided to head south with it. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it.
Hey, this is my type of weather. I'm ready for this.
This is. I mean, this is baseball weather. We got Northwestern baseball coming up. Got a game moved from Friday to Monday though, but this is that kind of weather. This is baseball weather in Oklahoma, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's always like this, when you start baseball season. One thing I do hope,
except for the fact it was 70 degrees 2 days ago, but
yeah,
that is the fun part about living in Oklahoma here. While we wait for Andrew to pull up this tweet, just to go on a little, I guess, digression, I guess is the best way to put it, is Oklahoma weather is every sport weather. It's cold, it's hot, it's whatever you want it to be. It's dry, it's muggy, whatever you need it to be, Oklahoma weather's going to have it, probably in the same week.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But obviously, Rams pull out a victory. Matt Stafford, in his first year with the Rams, gets 3 playoff wins, is now in the Super Bowl. And the Bengals, for the first time, winning a playoff game since I think like the late 80s, I believe that's what it was, and have made it all the way to now in the Super Bowl in Joe Burrow's second year.
And I think this has got to be one of the more likable Super Bowls for people who follow the game. I really think so, in that we have 2 quarterbacks that everyone seems to like, I would think, in Matt Stafford and Joe Burrow. There's no Brady. There's no Rodgers. There's no dynasties or teams that have been here enough to where you're sick and tired of seeing them. There's no real big names. I wouldn't consider the Rams a big name.
Yep.
I mean, there's no real threat to any of the big dynasties you think of.
That's exactly what I looked at, too. I was telling somebody the other day, for once I can sit back, watch the Super Bowl,
and not be worried.
Not hate anybody. If Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase win a Super Bowl, that's great. Their first one, a young team. It's awesome. See if they can build a dynasty. If the Rams go out and win, Matt Stafford gets his first one, Aaron Darnold gets his, etc. There's obviously a lot of other stars on that team as well getting their first. So this Super Bowl, I can actually enjoy it. I'm just hoping, since we can enjoy it, it's not going to be like a blowout for whatever team. I hope it's actually
that would be
lives up to the hype.
That would be the worst case scenario. Is we get the most likable Super Bowl and ends like 49-7.
I will say in regards to likability, I will say Cincinnati's going to get more love because Cincinnati and obviously the Rams are in LA. Therefore, people are not
got to beat L.A.
People are not going to be as likable. It's like if Matt Stafford wasn't on this team and it was a different quarterback, no one would be rooting for hard. Not most of the, unless you were a Rams fan, which is not that many to begin with.
All 5 of them.
Or if you just don't like the Bengals at all, you'd be rooting for Cincinnati. But now because it's Matt Stafford and there's some other players on there that you want to see actually win a Super Bowl, it's like, okay, this team is a little more likable, but because they're still LA, I'm not going to root for them. I'm going to root for Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
I want those guys to win.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of I think that always is a fun sentiment, which, I mean, it has a long history. The anti-West Coast versus anti-East Coast versus no coast, best coast kind of scenario that always plays out every year, regardless of sport. I mean, it could be baseball. You have the anti-Yankee, anti-Dodger people. I would put myself in that camp, I guess you could say.
I'm also in that camp.
I'm anti-Yankees. I'm not as much on the Dodgers.
Okay,
there's some guys on there I like.
Okay, well, let me tell you. Let me tell you a story. But anyway, yeah, I guess it's more one of those you're raised into it as well. That also plays a part. I mean, you have it in every sport. But the other thing I want to talk about, since we are talking about dynasties and stuff, is the official retiring of the legend himself, the man everyone loved to hate but hated to love, Tom Brady. I mean, whether we want to have this discussion on is he the GOAT or not, and I probably know our answers on this. First of all, just let's go ahead and get it out of the way. Is he the GOAT?
Yes.
I'm going to say it depends on your definition of GOAT.
Okay.
If you're going by accolades only, obviously yes, because he's got all the rings. But if you're going strictly pure quarterback talent,
no, it's
Aaron Rodgers is a better talented quarterback.
There's a lot of out of the quarterbacks that should have won more Super Bowls than Brady should ever have had, but yet they failed to do anything.
But if you look at the gifts he was given, arguably one of the greatest coaches of all time, plenty of talent on the offense, his teams back into the early part of his career were some of the best defenses people have seen. So my point is, if you give Aaron Rodgers some of the talent he's been around, if you give Peyton Manning some of that talent he's been around, and the defense, if you think about the Colts, they never had a good defense.
Peyton had that in Denver, and he only got one.
Well, he was only with them for 2-3 years, and that was at the end of his career. Where if you would have given Peyton Manning that Broncos defense back in the early part of his career, they would have won 4 or 5 Super Bowls with that defense. The problem is the Colts never had a defense, and the defense would always cost them games. Same thing with the Packers. Think about how many times Aaron Rodgers would drive that team down the field to have the defense blow the lead late in the game.
There was a lot of those guys that were on that team when they left. They weren't really notable outside of the Patriots.
That's because they stayed there for the whole career majority. A lot of those defenders, and there's a reason. Again, think about it. One of the biggest jokes right now is why the Cowboys can't win because Mike McCarthy's there. Think about who Aaron Rodgers had. Mike McCarthy.
At least they won
You're going to tell me if Aaron Rodgers had Bill Belichick, he wouldn't have more than one Super Bowl? He absolutely would have more than one Super Bowl.
That remains to be seen.
I'm just sitting over here enjoying this.
We're never going to see it. But if you ask me who has the better pocket awareness to scramble out of the pocket, it's Rodgers. Who has the better deep ball? It's Aaron Rodgers. I mean, if you look at Tom Brady's, don't get me wrong, I love Tom Brady is a phenomenal quarterback. And again, if you go strictly off the accolades, then yes, and then he is the GOAT. But I'm pure talent wise, Aaron Rodgers is a better talented. He's a better overall thrower. He's a better deep ball thrower. He has a better pocket awareness. And say I will make this argument in basketball too. If you want to go accolades, yes, Jordan will always be the better. But who's the better pure talented player? It's LeBron James. And I think that's where a lot of people get mixed up with is how many rings do they have? It's not all about rings it's all about because these sports are a team game.
But here's the thing with the NBA. Jordan played in an era where they were much more physical. LeBron even gets barely hit. He cries like a little baby.
Well, that means there's plenty. I can bring up videos of the same thing with Jordan.
Yeah, but at least those were actual. At least he got actually clapped. LeBron barely ever gets clapped, and then.
Come on. You're not going to tell me LeBron's not as good of a player because he gets a foul called for him,
He could breathe on you. You could breathe on LeBron, and then he'll fake like he took a career-ending injury.
That's got nothing to do with LeBron versus Jordan, though. That's just got to go with Adam Silver and whoever the commissioner was back then.
Like, there's different eras of basketball. Unless these two have, unless there's like a reality where these two actually would play in the same era, we can never have this debate on regards to
I don't disagree with that, but I do not disagree with that. I've always said that as well, so I do not disagree with that at all.
It's like we've like all three of us have watched LeBron growing up. I still don't think he's better than Jordan.
All right. Well, let's.
We're talking about physical. Like, yeah, that's.
Yeah, all right.
We should
agree
on this.
Yeah, so we're just gonna keep going in circles on this. I just wanted to bring it up.
We didn't get your answer.
We did not get my answer.
Don't think you're getting out of this one.
You're not getting out of this.
I'm not getting out of this, but I will say that my opinion. I'm gonna give the most centrist, middle of the road take on.
He's not gonna pick a side.
No, I am gonna pick a side. I do think Brady is the greatest, but I do value accolades a lot. I will say that. I do think football is a team game, and I do agree with some of your points, Andrew. I do think if we're going on a pure talent basis, there are a lot of things that Brady is not the best at, that he gets beaten out by other people.
I mean, I know Mahomes and Josh Allen are way younger than Brady, but you could already say they were way better than what Brady was in his early years.
Yeah, and you could say, was Brady the best mobile quarterback or anything? Was he a mobile guy? No, obviously. The man sometimes would make a 1-yard sneak look like it took an act of Congress to get done. But, I mean, if we're going, I like to think of both of them as equally, and I would say he's the greatest, surely, mainly just because I've not seen someone as dominant as that in my lifetime. And some of that you can say, Julian Edelman making insane catches or Gronk being Gronk. But to me, when I go back in all the games I can think of that I've watched over my time, granted, I'm not the biggest NFL person in the world, but the one guy who's always there and is always constant and will always show up regardless of what happens is Tom Brady.
No, I agree with that. Again, I think that goes for, a lot of quarterbacks. I think you throw Rodgers in that as well. But here's my last thing, and this isn't really Brady versus Rodgers. This is more just my point about the team game and everything. I think we'd all agree Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo, right?
Yes.
Well, here's why, to me, you can't just take wins, and you got to look at talent as well. Is because, look, the 49ers found a way to beat Aaron Rodgers off a special teams block punt that led to the game-winning field goal and the eventual end of the game there. So it's not always about how many wins and total wins you have at the end of obviously that plays a part. I'm not going to take a quarterback that has a losing record. But my point is, that's where – and when it comes down to winning championships and stuff like that, it comes down to a full team game. That's why I think sometimes, for me at least, you have to look at more than just who's got more rings.
I mean, it is always one of the most fascinating debates of who is the GOAT. There's a reason why ESPN talks about it. It feels like every other day at this point. I mean, it drives controversy, and controversy drives clicks, and clicks drives viewers.
I was about to say every other day is a generous word for ESPN.
But I will say let's all kind of agree on when it comes to GOAT arguments. Let's not comparing one athlete from another sport to another is really dumb.
I agree with
We
that.
should all agree that the greatest person of all time is Brian Scalabrine. There is no argument. White Mamba.
Easy. Bardo Close got an argument there.
Boban Marjanovic is the best athlete of all time. You can't convince me otherwise. The man's 7'4". Yes, I am biased. I don't care. But also, Mike and Perkins here. Bill Russell has as many championships as Jordan and James combined, but he's not the greatest. You can talk to my dad about that one. He'll have some strict words for you. That is a conversation I never expected to have one day, but I did, and it went on a weird tangent. I'll just say that.
And like you said, the GOAT conversation always does.
The GOAT conversation always does because someone's going to come in with a take you never expect. But speaking of the GOAT, we talked basketball enough. We kind of went off track from where I went to go, but this is a good sidetrack anyway. Let's just go right into the NBA here on what has been a fascinating season so far in the association. We're over the halfway point, basically. And thank you, of course, for those tuning in. We are having technical difficulties. Camera not wanting to work today. That's why you're seeing the NWTV 7 logo. But starting here in the East, and I know this is something I've talked with Connor before, but Andrew, this East is looking a lot better than I can remember. I cannot remember the last time I've seen this competitive of an East and how just well a lot of the teams are.
It's been incredible, honestly. I mean, honestly, when was the last time you could say the 6th seed is only 2 games out of being the 1 seed? let alone the 6th seed being the team with. I mean,
I
I know
say,
that,
let alone the 6th seed having Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving.
I know they haven't all played together that much, really, but like still, the fact that they have one of those three, you think they'd be better than the 6th seed. So it's been a wild ride for the Eastern Conference right now. And
I will say, imagine the record what the Nets' record would be if Kyrie Irving was playing at home, because he still can't.
Yeah, it'd probably be a little bit better. I'd say 12 and 13.
I'd probably say they'd probably be about fourth or third.
Well, I mean, they're only 2 games out.
I know they're only 2 games out, but I'm talking about like how much better would their record?
Yeah, I agree. They could easily be first.
And what I'm wondering too is, while we're on the Kyrie topic, come playoff time, do you think they'll finally they'll just make it the exception since it's the playoffs, or do you think imagine
they're going to show up in their road uniforms at home and claim it's a road game?
Well, and yeah, exactly. Well, I was talking about it with somebody, and we were discussing it. Like, if you're Brooklyn, do you honestly not want to be the home? Like, think about it. If you're the home team there and you get a Game 7 and Kyrie still can't play, you're going to be without Kyrie in a home Game 7 there. Would you rather honestly be the road team technically in a 7-game series? That way you have Kyrie Irving for all those games. You just got to steal one on the road.
I wonder if that's something we'll think of, because I remember last year we had the whole Western Conference Clippers, Mavs, Nuggets scenario where you had teams trying to intentionally lose that last game. The Clippers rested all their starters against the Thunder to try to lose, to play the Mavs again. The Nuggets tried to do the same thing, and so nothing changed. I wonder if the Nets are in that position, do you intentionally try to get into the play-in just so you have that home court disadvantage taken away?
Well, especially if it's, I mean, maybe not if they're up around the 1 or 2 seed, but if it's the 4-5 game, and really all that matters is, okay, because you're either going to play the 4 or 5, and all that matters is, are you going to be home or away? At that point, is it okay, do I want the 5 seed? It's funny to think about.
Do I want Kyrie Irving potentially one more game that I could get him? Probably.
Yeah, that's it. But obviously, depending on where it's like you got to hope if you're Brooklyn that Brooklyn will actually will either make an exception or they'll just up their mandate completely. Otherwise, you're pretty much screwed. But the way I see it, we'll find out when we get there. Yeah. But otherwise, I just probably don't see it happening.
Yeah, we're still 2.5 months away. So
it
could change.
We are a ways away from the NBA playoffs.
We still got 4 or 5 more months.
A long ways to go until we crown a champion. But the thing that just surprises me, and I mean, I felt it could happen, but this Chicago Bulls team, just what a turnaround it has been for them. DeMar DeRozan's been playing the lights out, and just this is not a team that – it's weird saying this, that the team that had Michael Jordan on it. This is weird seeing Chicago be good again. Despite all the talent they've had that has come through there, it's still weird to me. It feels like it's been forever since the Bulls have been this legitimately talented.
Yeah, I feel good for him. I mean, I've never had anything against Chicago. I always felt bad. I loved watching Derrick Rose when he first came in the league, so I always felt bad when he couldn't stay healthy, and that's the reason why they lost 90% of the time. I'll never forget, it's the only reason why the Sixers beat him in the playoffs one time is because Derrick Rose got hurt, and we got that advantage. So if Derrick Rose was in that series, we would have got beat pretty bad. So, I always felt bad because whatever it was, it always felt like something would go wrong for Chicago. So, I'm kind of – I mean, obviously, we'll see what they do come playoff time if they're able to maintain this. But and here's the thing. They got likable guys on that team, too. It's not like guys that have just been ring chasing left and right. It's actually a group of guys that have been solid and, are actually just coming together playing well. And DeRozan – they got one of my favorite centers, Nikola Vucevic.
Yeah,
on that
Vucevic
team too.
is always fun.
So he's fun to watch. And then, who's the third guy missing? Oh, Zach LaVine.
Yeah, Zach LaVine.
So they got a fun group that it isn't just a bunch of guys who have been successful in the league and are like, okay, let's just come together and buy another ring, basically. It's 3 guys that were almost still searching for that ring, but had enough talent that they're kind of able to build that. So I think it's really cool to see their success.
And 2 people that got traded as a part of teams chasing rings. Yeah. DeRozan, obviously, with the Kawhi trade, and LaVine with Jimmy Butler going to Minnesota, which that feels ancient at this point.
It does.
Jimmy Butler now on the Heat, and the Heat are tied with the Bulls for first. They're just sitting right there and half a game behind them. There's your Sixers just sitting there. Joel Embiid continuing to impress. I mean, what can't he do? He had that 50-point game the other day. The MVP race is going to be fun as it always is with Jokic, Embiid, pretty much whoever you want to throw in there at this point. Everyone, it feels like, is in the MVP race. And Cleveland, just a young Cleveland team out there winning and having fun while doing it.
And even with that, they're missing their arguably their best player. I mean, Colin Sexton hasn't played in, I think, since the first 3 weeks of the season. So, I mean, even to have them do what they're doing right now, it's incredible to see.
Yeah, and then, of course, Milwaukee at the 5 spot, the defending champions. It's still nice to say that. It really is. Not a Bucks fan, but it's just nice seeing a change of pace for the league, aside from, the long break we had with it's either the Warriors or the Cavs, and then it was the Lakers, and then who knew who it was going to be. The Bucks are still doing well.
It's at least a team that doesn't have like a big name recognition.
Yeah, and then
but you have whatever. I'll continue.
All right,
I had something, but I decided not to say it.
And then we already talked about Brooklyn at 6, Charlotte at 7, and I mean the Hornets. This is another young, fun group of guys, kind of like Cleveland to watch. Where, I mean, if you would have told me of all the Ball brothers that it's LaMelo Ball that I think is the one that's been the most entertaining to watch so far, I don't know if I would have believed it.
I wouldn't have believed it, but honestly, I am one of those people that believe it's because of the dad. Like, in all honesty,
Yeah.
I think with how much he just talked about Lonzo, it almost ruined Lonzo in a way, which I feel bad for Lonzo in that sense. But really, after that whole Lonzo drama, LaMelo kind of just came into the league and was able to do his thing while Lonzo got all the attention and all the publicity and stuff. So, I mean, I'm not saying if that doesn't happen, it would have changed a whole lot, but I do think that played a little bit in the factor there. If not bothering Lonzo, at least overhyping Lonzo a little bit.
Yeah. Then Toronto at 8, and Boston at 9. Those two neck and neck tied pretty much for the 8 spot there. Two teams that, it feels like they could be better, but it also feels like they could be worse considering what's been going on. You have stars, but you just can't always put it together, it feels like.
Especially this next team, the Hawks.
Yeah, the Hawks
10.
at 10.
I can't believe they're 10 right now. I mean, they were in the Eastern Conference Finals last year.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they still got all their stars on their team. So
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those. They had that bad streak where they couldn't play that well. Trae Young wasn't shooting well, but they're starting to get back into rhythm. They've won 7 of their last 10, trying to avoid the Knicks and the Wizards, who are just half a game behind them.
Well, I mean, we talk about the top being so close, 1-6. I mean, you can even make. I mean, think about it. They're only 2.5 back of 7, and they're only 4.5 back of that 6 spot. So, I mean, I don't think they're going to make up the 7.5 games to get up to the top, but there's still room for them to move up and solidify a better seeding.
Yep. And then as we move on over to the Western Conference, it's the Suns still in first place. Phoenix continuing to chase a ring here. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton. That team is a lot of fun to watch still.
They're pretty much stacked.
Yeah, I mean, it was almost
aspects.
Everyone from last year's back.
And they're playing really good.
Yep. And
I think they're the most fun team to watch, top to bottom.
They
are. I mean, they just got a great mix of the young guys and the veteran Chris Paul, and then now you mix him with Ayton and everything. So, top to bottom, they're probably my favorite or most fun team to watch.
They definitely are. It's not fun watching them beat my Mavs, though, but you know what? It's been 9 straight, just personal rant here.
Get good.
It's been 9 straight times we've lost to the Suns. Couldn't even beat them when they were tanking.
I
don't understand.
I hear all about it as well. My roommate was a Mavs fan back at OSU, so I hear it from him all the time how they can't beat the Suns.
It's pain. It really is. You know when you're playing a team and you know you're better than them, and you just can't do it. You're having a better night than them. They're shooting bad. And then you're like, you know what? We're just not going to score for 5 minutes and see what happens. It's just like, why? Why did I agree?
What you guys normally do every now and then.
Yeah, it's just like, you know what? I guess everyone's taking a night off. Luka, try your hardest.
Because I remember watching Clippers and Mavs play each other in a regular season. It was like, Mavs really don't know how to shoot half the time, do they?
No, it's incredible. The fact that the Mavs have a 29-22 record, despite the fact they choose not to shoot every other game, is incredible. And I think shows that I don't understand this team. I will never understand Dallas. I could watch every game and still never understand the Mavs. But we'll get to that when we get to that. Second, of course, is the Warriors. Klay Thompson coming back now. Kind of one of the bigger stories of the year, happening only a month ago. I guess I can technically say that it is February 1st after all. Only a month ago. I mean, the Warriors looked like they're going to get back into rhythm. Andrew Wiggins being an all-star this year. I know there was controversy about that. Some people said he shouldn't be. Some people said he should. But the Warriors are playing fun ball like they always seem to.
Yeah, they're getting back to what they used to be, without question. Obviously, it helps to get Klay back and everything. But, No, they're a fun team. I mean, they got guys on their team too. I don't like them as much as the Suns because I think Warriors still are just majority. Let's live by the three, we'll die by the three, and that stuff. So that's why I kind of like that the Suns are able to mix multiple things in. But no, this next team, I'll let you introduce them. But they're so much better.
I'll let okay. The honors go to me, I guess. But this third seed is a team that I know a lot of people expect them to make a jump at some point. When you've got Ja Morant, who is one of the most exciting point guards in the league, Memphis has been outstanding this year. There's been nothing else to say about them. This is a team that I really didn't know how good they were going to be this year. Every time you have a young team, like we've seen it with Cleveland and Charlotte, you can see a big jump and it not surprise you, and that seems to be the case again. Memphis is 35-18, the 3 seed in the West, and it's not just Ja Morant. There are others on this team. Desmond Bane having a big day the other day, 34 in a big win. This is a team that when they just need someone to play, Robin to the Batman of Ja Morant, and usually that happens. And it's not just one guy, it's multiple that could step up. But this Memphis team, they really are, I think, kind of the dark horse team this year of the NBA.
No, they really are. And I think outside they're right with the Suns in my opinion. I love watching this Memphis Grizzlies team, and Ja Morant is probably my favorite non-Sixer in the league. And I even when he was in college, I love Ja Morant. He's just a fun guy to watch. And I mean, like you said, I was expecting a jump. I don't know about this jump from where they were last year to the 3 seed, and I mean, arguably they beat I think the Warriors and the Suns recently. So, and then the Sixers and the Grizzlies went to overtime yesterday. That was a lot of fun to watch. And I mean, Desmond Bane too. He can shoot the lights out as well. And they're another team that mixed a lot of young guys with veterans. And I mean, they kind of went the opposite of Suns. They went young for the guard spot, and then they got like a guy like Steven Adams who's able to maintain that back or the front court. So they just another great mix that are now just clicking, and it's a lot of fun to watch, and I hope they can continue to do it because I'd love to see them or the Suns come out of the West.
Yeah, then the 4 seed, you have the Jazz. The 5 seed, you have the Nuggets. I'm kind of grouping those two together because they're similar enough to me in that they can play defense, they can play offense. They're very fluid teams. They're both kind of iffy at times. The Jazz have lost 5 in a row. The Nuggets have won 5 in a row. They're kind of two teams that, to me, almost feel like they're the same team sometimes. You look at them and, you have a dominant center, whether it be on defense with Rudy Gobert for the Jazz, whether it be on offense with Nikola Jokic for the Nuggets. They're two teams that kind of play the same way in terms of how they're built, but vastly different in terms of strategy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think both of them are just going to be pending health. Obviously, last year they lose Jamal Murray late in the year. Utah Jazz just lost Joe Ingles for the season. I mean, torn ACL. And he's not your typical basketball player, but he's a lot of fun to watch.
He is.
And he always finds a way to be successful. So, and I think it's honestly going to be a bigger loss for that team than most people will think. So I'm interested to see how the Jazz respond. But no, they are very, very similar teams.
Yeah. Then the 6th seed, we already talked about a little bit with Dallas, and I've got to say, I'm happy we're the 6th seed. I've never thought I would say that in my life, but with the injuries we've had, Porzingis getting injured again a few days ago, Tim Hardaway Jr. broken left foot. If the Mavs can just hold on, I will consider this a win. That is where I'm at with this team. We got Dirk's jersey up in the rafters now at the AAC. We got our Rick Carlisle honoring when he came back the other night as the head coach of the Pacers now. Mission complete. We've done everything we can this year, it feels like, and we've still got half a season left.
I mean, they're honestly a sleeper team because if they actually get healthy and start to click, anything can happen with Luka.
Yes.
So I really wouldn't be surprised to see them move up to the 4th spot in the West. But you guys mentioned earlier, they need shooters. So if they're able to go get a shooter at the deadline, anything can really happen. To me though, they're a team that never make a move at the deadline. They're just always kind of
when they do, it backfires.
And that's why if I was a Mavs fan, I'd be frustrated because they've just been missing that 1 or 2 shooters for a while now. It's just go out and get one at the deadline, and it'll go a long way.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends because when Maxi Kleber plays well, when Dorian Finney-Smith plays well, when Jalen Brunson plays well, and Tim Hardaway Jr., they can be a really fun team. They're a really fun team. But when one of them is not playing well, the entire core falls apart, and it turns into Luka and Porzingis trying to get something done, and that doesn't always work. It's not a good winning game plan of, hey, let's play 1-on-5, it feels like. But then the 7th seed, you've got Minnesota, who continues to tread the water here at 25-25, but that's good enough for the 7th seed this year. And then the two LA teams, the Clippers and the Lakers, with the Clippers being over the Lakers. And I know we're going to kind of skip over Minnesota and the Clippers because there are some storylines there, but not as many as the problem that everyone has seen this year, and everyone has a different take on how to fix it. What is going on with the Lakers? They're the 9th seed. They're 24-27. The Russell Westbrook experiment seems to have failed for now.
And AD not being out for a bit.
Yeah, Anthony Davis being out doesn't help either. But just what in the world is going on in L.A.?
I think here's the thing. I've never been a big Westbrook fan, so they're kind of stuck. They got to find a way to move his contract. It's just not working out, and if I'm them, I give up on it already. I do like there's been a lot of rumors the Westbrook for Wall deal. If there's a way to get that done, I think they need to try to find a way to get it done. Like you guys said, Davis has been out. That's been a huge problem. But here's the thing. Westbrook's contract is almost going to handicap him to keep him at this point. It's going to be which team is going to want to take that deal. And for whatever team is going to want to take that deal, what are you really going to get back? Because most likely if a team's taking that deal, they're a bad team that's probably going to buy out Westbrook. So, I mean, you look at the bad teams of the league, the Kings, the Thunder, the Pelicans. I mean, you go over to the East, you have the Pistons and some of those teams. But it's like, who are they going to give up for Westbrook? I don't think. Why would the Kings give you De'Aaron Fox or one of those guys for Westbrook at this point in their careers? They're going to be looking for somebody young that they can bring in. So, Lakers are in a tough spot there, and here's the thing. I think a lot of people when they made that trade were like, why are they making this trade?
It never made any sense.
He doesn't fit with that team. So they've kind of handicapped themselves. I think they felt desperate to make a move for a quote-unquote superstar, and I think they bought in on the wrong guy.
Well, by doing that, they also sacrificed their bench and have no solid role players. And any role players they did have, they chose not to resign.
Yeah, and you've got Kyle Kuzma, who is one of the main bench guys for the Lakers, whether you loved him or hate him. I saw a lot of it on Lakers. Fans kind of felt like they flip-flopped every single day on Kuzma. But he's been killing it with the Wizards. He really has the past few days, especially.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal this year, and it's a shame. Yeah, he's not. He's one of those guys I always thought was weird that a lot of people hated. I get he's not a consistent player, but he goes out, he works hard, and he's a guy that when he can have a good game, he'll have a good game, and he's a guy I like to see go. You know what? The guy on the Wizards I'd like to see go somewhere and actually win is Bradley Beal.
That is true.
They're just wasting his talents away. But
you got to get the 10 seed, Andrew.
Right? But for some reason, I mean, got to give him credit if he wants to be loyal to them, and
that
apparently he does. But, I mean, he's a guy I'm just waiting to move on somewhere else.
Speaking of loyalty and waiting and who knows, the next team, Portland at the 10 spot. I mean, Portland has been an interesting scenario. We had the entire offseason of who goes where. You know, is Lillard going to get traded? Is Lillard going to be traded for Ben Simmons? What about C.J. McCollum? Who knows where anyone is going? Is anyone getting traded? The answer was no. And Portland has kind of had to deal with the consequences of their own actions here. 21-30, they've been plagued by injuries at times. I mean, Anthony Simons has been playing well, though, as a backup when he's needed to, kind of getting thrust into that starter role. C.J. McCollum has been playing decently this year. He's been a lot better of a passer this year, I think, is one of the main things that they've been needing out of him for the past few years.
I think they're a team that just can't get healthy at the right time. I mean, McCollum's been out, Lillard's been out at different times, and like you said, different guys are trying to step up, but this team's just so reliant on a guy like Lillard, and I think he's been out for a little while now. I can't remember when his last game was, and I can't remember what exactly his issue was, because I know it was something serious, because he even said he's willing to hold out if he has to before he's actually fully 100%. And same with, I mean, McCollum ended up getting over, and I forget what his was, but his was almost career-threatening just because there was something, I think, in his stomach area or something like that. So we'll see what happens with them. They're another team I wish could be better than they are. But, sometimes, especially in the COVID times, you're going to be dealing with different stuff left and right.
Yeah. But that pretty much wraps up the NBA, kind of going through all the standings there. Going back to the NFL real quick before we kind of get into one of the other topics that is one of the big newsworthy things today. The Jim Harbaugh rumors continue to heat up, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you not initiated with them or not really knowing what's going on, the big rumor has been that Jim Harbaugh has a chance. Maybe he's going to interview, I think, tomorrow is what I've seen, with Minnesota about the job. We've heard he's had interest from the Dolphins as well. Should be Mentioned that the owner of the Dolphins is a Michigan alum. I don't know if that partakes with anything there, but I mean, it's interesting to see what's going on there. Jim Harbaugh, obviously, if he does leave Michigan, that creates a power vacuum. I've seen jokes of Tom Brady retiring to become the head coach of Michigan. That would be funny. I don't know how that one would work. Well, I just kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts on the situation. Does Jim Harbaugh leave? And if so, does he go to Minnesota? Does Miami make a play? Kind of give me your thoughts on what you think happens here.
I think personally, it's almost a decoy to try to get Michigan to give him even more money. I just think it's too weird of a time for him. You continue to lose to Ohio State, you continue to fail to make the playoffs, and then you're like, okay, I'm loyal to Michigan, I'm loyal to Michigan, I'm loyal to Michigan, I'm not leaving. And then all of a sudden, you finally beat Ohio State, you finally make the playoffs, and then after that 1 year, you're out. I just find that hard to believe. I think he's trying to buy into some of these interviews to almost get Michigan to try to up their – I don't know what his contract is fully, so I can't really say. Maybe I'm wrong if he signed a long deal here recently. But I think based off that, I think he's trying to almost get more out of Michigan to see if they can give him even – I know he's already on a big contract, but give him even more of a big contract. 'Cause, I mean, that's what they're there. I mean, in the end, he's going to do is he's going to try to inch out every dollar from Michigan, and because Michigan, especially after a year like that, they're going to be looking to keep him. So I think that's what he's doing right now, and in the end, I think he will stay in Michigan.
Yeah, I don't see him taking an NFL job. If he really wanted to stay in the if he wanted to be in the NFL, he would never have left to go to Michigan after he got released from the Niners. He would have went looking for another job. But in fact, he went to Michigan and has stayed through the entire his current tenure. And after the ups and downs he dealt with, and a lot of disappointments, and then he finally gets over the hump. You don't leave after finally just getting over the hump. You typically stay and try to keep going, and I just don't see him actually leaving. I, in many ways, agree with you that he's trying to probably tempt Michigan to give him more money. Well, I mean, for Michigan, that's a guy you don't want to lose, especially you finally made the playoff, and you finally beat Ohio State after 7 tries.
Yeah, so it seems we're kind of in agreement here on Jim Harbaugh more than likely staying at Michigan. But I do want to kind of ponder the hypothetical bit of if he does leave, whether it be to Minnesota or Miami, what do you think Michigan does, or what do you think would be the best move for them in terms of this late in the season? I mean, National Signing Day around the corner. I mean, obviously the transfer portal is always a factor, but what would even be the move for the Wolverines there?
That's a good question. I think they obviously look to try to find some alumni. I think it's too early for Brady before, like you said. I don't see that one happening. But I think they're in a tough spot. Obviously, they're late in the game. I think you can turn some of the NFL coaches that have got fired. I mean, since he's right on the front center of our screen, I think Flores is excellent. I will continue to push for him. I mean, as we talked about when Miami got rid of him, we were shocked to see Miami get rid of him. So I mean, I think whether it's an NFL team or if it's a team like Michigan so late in the process to look towards him, I think he'd be a viable option. I think, I just think because of their desperation at this point with how late it is going to be, you almost have to turn to a veteran NFL guy who just got let go. So I think that's a spot I would look for. I think maybe you go within. I don't really know their coordinators that well, but if they have a lot of well-respected coordinators in-house, maybe you turn to that. Again, you guys probably know better than me in terms of that, if they have coordinators in there. So I look to that, and then really there's not much else where you can go. I mean, I think if you want to take a chance on a guy that really hasn't gotten a job before, I don't think that'd be a well-liked hire from that fan base, a team with or a school with such a storied history. So I think if you want to please your fan base, you're going to have to look for a guy with some NFL success, or maybe a former alum, just to get the boosters happy and everything, and see where you go from there.
I will say Brian Flores would probably be one of the first hires I would go for, because he can probably, in regards to recruiting, he can probably really help you out there. And also, I think he was a solid coach as when he was with the Dolphins.
He got them.
Guys were getting hurt. Were getting hurt. There was no consistency in staying healthy at all. And Tua, even when he was healthy, wasn't playing consistent. Tua would play good and then proceed to play not really good.
Yeah, I mean, they never really developed any consistency there. But
so it's like, but I still think it was way too early for Dolphins to pull the gun, and also doesn't help that he's now suing the NFL for alleged racism in regards to hiring.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that goes. But the one name I kept seeing Michigan fans bring up that if Harbaugh does leave, and I want to get your opinion on this because I think it was not really out of left field, but we talked about NFL experience, talked about college experience. Matt Rule was a name I kept hearing some Michigan fans saying that's a hire they would be okay with.
That would be a solid hire because Matt Rule has shown he can rebuild. Like he started at Temple when he was head coach at Temple, made them a solid program, respectable, and then he goes to Baylor, only there for 2 years, and he made them. He was able to get them to the Big 12 title.
Yeah, he took over a 1-11 team and was able to make them Big 12 contenders.
And then obviously, even after he left, Baylor still did well. But obviously, his tenure in the NFL hasn't been the best. But that doesn't help. But he can't really control in regards to guys getting injured. And the only thing he can control is him and the GM drafting.
Yeah.
And hopefully, they can develop those players, and hopefully, they can do something about their quarterback situation. Because what's really holding them back is their quarterback stuff, and obviously McCaffrey staying healthy.
Yeah, that's the main two problems for the Panthers there. But moving into the college world now that I've kind of opened the door there talking about Jim Harbaugh, ladies and gentlemen, it finally happened. Caleb Williams announced where he's going, and to the surprise of absolutely zero people, it's USC. I am so shocked.
Wow, imagine my shock.
I am so shocked that Caleb Williams said he wanted to, continue being with Lincoln Riley and all that. I had my phone blowing up earlier today with OEP. Like, did you see that? Yes. This was a surprise to no one. I mean, once we knew that Caleb Williams announced he was transferring, there was kind of some optimism that, okay, we'll see. Maybe he'll come back. And then the second the Dylan Gabriel news broke, it's like, yeah, he's gone. He's not coming back. So, I mean, it poses an interesting offseason now for USC, who does not still have a great recruiting class. That's not really Lincoln's fault, though. That's more Clay Helton and trying to salvage what happened this season. Obviously, him getting fired back in September, which feels like so long ago from where we are now.
I will say in regards to that, the talent that's currently at USC, Lincoln will turn them around for the most part, like especially the offensive side. With his playbook, they'll be a much better team overall. Well, I know what we say about that defense, I don't know, but that offense will be playing much better.
Well, I mean, Alex Grinch is a solid hire out there. I mean, that system has worked in the Pac-12. Alex Grinch's speed D worked at Washington State. I think it can work at USC. The main thing to me that is going to be the big question, not really year one for USC. Year one is going to be, you can do whatever basically and not get fired. But year two, where do they go from there? Obviously, they'll have a lot of talent by then. I mean, Lincoln's an excellent recruiter. That's the main mark of him. Excellent recruiter, in-game situations, good most of the time. But
I will say he might be able to keep a lot of those California talent in California.
Yeah, and that's the main thing that Lincoln has been able to do. He has targeted California heavily, even at Oklahoma, and that's something I think he'll bring a lot of success there, keeping Cali kids in California.
He just strikes me as a guy that's going to continue. I think he's just going to hit the transfer portal a lot. I think he's going to take full advantage of those new rules. I think that's where he's going to continue to look. Like you guys said, he'll keep the talent in California there, but I think overall he's going to live by the transfer portal. I really do. I think now with him having the ability to be out there, I think that's going to help him with the transfer portal as well. Get some guys to go out there. So I think he's honestly going to live and die by that.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It'll be interesting to see how year one goes because Lincoln Riley succeeded in one thing, and that's blocking nearly half the OU fans on Twitter, it feels like. So where local media legend at Oklahoma City, Eddie Radosevich, even got blocked by him. So that was hilarious to see. Lincoln Riley officially one last declaration of war on the Oklahoma fan base, blocking poor Eddie. Never did anything wrong. Just criticized his brisket. That's all he ever did. But, I mean, I kind of want to get your thoughts on what you think of Oklahoma currently. We've talked about it a little bit, mainly from the USC side and the Caleb Williams side. And the Wisconsin angle that was a rumor for a few days last week, and even UCLA and Georgia before that. But I know we really haven't talked about Oklahoma in this a whole lot after the initial bombshell was let off and the mass exodus. But
Yeah, I think in regards to, like, especially the talent that would have been starting the next year if hardly any of them even left, you lost a lot of key players that were very big contributors the last couple years that really helped OU a lot. But you pretty much lost anyone that started, like, before, like, if you don't count any seniors or super seniors or whatever. Most of those guys started or at least played a lot of minutes 2 years ago, are now all gone. So basically you're dealing with mostly a new group of guys besides keeping a couple of players that will still probably be here. But otherwise, OU, like, overall on both sides of the ball, I think their defense didn't suffer as much as their offense did.
no,
But OU will, it's like, because it's OU, they'll still always be in the conversation. They're going to get ranked next year, but probably not as high as they probably would have. They'll probably be, like, at least in the top 15 or top 20, maybe. I just don't see them in the top 10 yet. It depends on how well they play. But overall, obviously Dylan Gabriel, that's a solid transfer to come in. Played well at UCF, but I just don't see, like, I don't think OU is going to be looked at the way they've been, like they were this year. I think they're going to be looked at, they're a team that will have a solid record, but no one's going to really look at them as Big 12 title contenders like they typically are. Now, that's not saying they'll ever get there. It's saying that no one's going to look at them that way. The talent that is currently there are going to be coming in. They're going to have to prove that they're going to have to play a lot better because you're basically going to probably be working with a lot of young guys. It's not an older team that you'll be working with. A lot of young guys.
I think for the first time in a while, they're not going to be the favorites to win the Big 12. I think they're in trouble. Like, in all honesty, I really do. I think one, it was unfair to them. I think what Lincoln Riley did was absolute trash too. To be honest, I think he had his mindset that he was almost out of there the second, like, on who was ever there before him got fired at USC. I think he pretty much had his mind made up at that point. So I really think it was also a hard year to judge OU off of because I don't think he was fully invested. And I also think, but I think it leaves OU in a tough spot. Obviously, they lost a lot of transfers now. They obviously brought in a quarterback here as well. But I think you look at them. I mean, we don't know. I don't think they've ever actually said what year they're officially starting in the SEC. But that's a scare if I'm an OU fan. And then as well as I think they're third, maybe fourth in the Big 12 this year. I mean, I think you have to put OSU in front of them, and I think you have to put Baylor in front of them. And then we'll see what else happens throughout the year because there's always another team that's surprised. I think they'll stay ranked to start the year, probably around the 18 to 25 range. But, I mean, if I was an OU fan, I'd be pretty worried about what this year's going to bring. Because also, from an outsider standpoint, I was kind of underwhelmed with that hire as well.
I will say before Cade gets to really talk what he wants to do, I want to say something really quickly in regards to, like, how the Big 12 will more likely look at it. It's going to probably be Baylor. Baylor and Texas are now going to be favorite because Texas obviously bringing in huge transfer and with the talent that they should have and the way they recruit, they should be a favorite. But obviously, we have yet to see how that talent actually develops. They've had the third or fourth coach after third coach after Mac Brown, and that didn't turn into a disaster this last year. But we have to see what that turns out. So basically, OU is probably be looking at maybe in regards to, like, where they'll be in the standings as regards to preseason, probably fourth or fifth, maybe third. But otherwise, not going to be a top two favorite like they usually are. But that remains to be seen. But now we'll let our OU fan actually talk.
Are you ready for some optimism, everybody? I think this Oklahoma team is going to be special. Not in terms of talent-wise, but in terms of just where Oklahoma is as a program. And that the fan base so far, I don't think I'm ever going to see them rally around a team as hard as they're going to rally around this one. This team is a bunch of people that wanted to stay. They wanted to be loyal to the university and the team and not to Lincoln Riley or to go further their careers somewhere else. And to some of them, to most of them, I have no problem with that. I have zero problem with them wanting to transfer out, seeing the writing on the wall. But to those who stayed, they're going to be respected by the fan base. They're going to be loved by the fan base. But that being said, I think this Oklahoma team can win the Big 12. Am I saying they're going to? No. I don't know where they'll be. They could honestly, like we've talked about, they could be third. But I think the 4 big games I have for Oklahoma this year that I think will be the benchmark for them are very simple. Number one's got to be at Nebraska. First road game of the year. First time playing a legitimate opponent all year, not Kent State, not UTEP. First time on the road. Huge rivalry game being renewed for the second year. That's going to be a marquee game. It really is. I mean, to some people, obviously for Oklahoma, this is going to be an important game, bring back old memories of playing Nebraska and Lincoln. But if they can win that game, that's a big win. But the one and Texas as well, of course, I think that's number 2 on the list of big games. Obviously number 1 on the rivalry list. But those 2 are going to be big. The main games that I'm worried about are at Iowa State on Thursday night, Baylor at home, and Oklahoma State at home. I think Oklahoma has the potential to win all 3 of those, mainly thanks to Baylor and Oklahoma State being in Norman and having the bye week before Iowa State. But those 3 games, I think, are the ones that scare me the most in Big 12 play because I know what all 3 of those teams are capable of. Iowa State, yeah, they're kind of in a down year. You lose a lot of guys from last year's team, but they're always scary at home. Anytime you get a Matt Campbell team at home, they're going to give you everything they've got. Yep. Baylor, we know what Baylor can do now. Dave Aranda at the helm, they're going to have an elite defense. Offense is still always going to be kind of questionable in terms of quarterback, but they're always going to have a strong run game. And that's really what you need to do to win in the college game. We see it in the professional game. I mean, look at the 49ers. Defense and a strong run game, you're always going to be successful with that. Oklahoma State is going to be an interesting one as well because a lot of the defense will not change with Derek Mason coming over as the defensive coordinator, keeping the same base that Knowles had. I think if that's the one of the 3 that I'm kind of the most intrigued by is that game, especially if OU does announce this is the last year in the Big 12. Obviously not saying that will happen, but just still the implication that carries with it, that could be the last bedlam for a long time, and what that means to the state in general. I think that game will be must-watch TV. That game will be one of the most important games played really in the Big 12 for a long time. And, of course, also, as Mike and Perkins mentioned, Texas still has to play Kansas. That's another important one, just to see if Texas can beat them. They have that 1-game losing streak. That is true.
And they have to go play in Lawrence.
They have to play in the vaunted stadium of Memorial Stadium with that evil track that was around it. Can Texas beat Kansas? Who knows? But there is one stat I do want to mention because it is funny. Texas indeed losing to Kansas. Every year Lincoln Riley was at OU, whether it be offensive coordinator or head coach, the years OU did not make the playoffs, Texas did not beat Kansas. This is an unbelievable stat. But 2015, Oklahoma makes the playoffs. 2016, Oklahoma does not. Kansas beats Texas. 2017, 18, and 19, Oklahoma makes the playoffs. 2020, Kansas, Texas canceled because of COVID. 2021, Oklahoma does not make the playoff. Kansas beats Texas.
That's an interesting
That's the funniest stat I can think of, and the only thing I will ever remember positively from the Lincoln Riley era now on.
That's funny.
But that's my whole little tidbit. I think Marvin Mims and Theo Weiss are still going to be great receivers for Oklahoma. Dylan Gabriel, I think, knowing Jeff Lebby's system is a big positive right off the bat. I am a little scared for the offensive line still. I have no idea what's going to happen there. If they come out strong and they play great, I'm going to feel a lot more confident. If it's about like last year's where Dylan has to run for his life, I'm going to feel a lot less confident. The defense is a year 1 work in progress. I'm not expecting a whole lot there, just kind of continue somewhat of what happened under Alex Grinch. I'll expect that to get better as it goes on, being Venable's coach team now.
And also it does help Venables as a defensive coach.
It does help having a lot of Clemson assistants who were a part of that, and having Venables back does help defensively. If we still have defensive issues, there's just a deeper problem that we need to figure out at Oklahoma.
I will say I want to see how, like, in regards to how his system, I understand it's mainly going to be obviously the OC's offensive system, but with Venables as the coach, we got to see how they develop that talent.
It is going to be interesting. I do love bringing Schmitty back as the strength and conditioning coach, the guy who was there under Bob Stoops, and I think it'll be really fun to see because he had some great offensive lines, had a lot of good players that were developed into that strength and conditioning program. And so I think Oklahoma will be in a good place. It's just moving to the SEC is going to make it a lot more difficult to show it because you're going to be dealing with the Alabamas of the world, the Georgias of the world, even the Ole Misses and the Texas A&Ms and the LSUs. It's going to be a lot different than getting to play Kansas and Iowa State and Kansas State every single week. Those teams are still tough. I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but it's a lot more different of an atmosphere in terms of we're going to burn all of our money on football instead of trying to balance it out a bit more.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
But moving on from college football and me getting my little spiel out of the way, we have college basketball going on as well tonight. We are an hour and 40 minutes away from the night Lubbock potentially burns to the ground. I'll explain that in a moment. A little bit of bracketology from Joe Lunardi coming out this morning. Auburn, of course, still the number one team in the country, the top overall seed. No question about that. But I do want to mention the Big 12 currently 7 teams in, the Big 10 with 7, and the Big East with 7, as well as the SEC with 7. A lot of love to the big conferences, kind of as we look here. Auburn, Gonzaga, Purdue, and Baylor, your 4 number 1 seeds. Kansas, UCLA, Duke, and Kentucky, your number 2s. As we kind of look here at the top of the brackets, is there anything that really stands out to you guys that you might want to think of? Or
I'm shocked Baylor still won. I get they won last night, big win over West Virginia, but they've been struggling the last few games. I would expect them to fall down to the 2 seed with their last couple losses. They dropped down to, I think, 8 or 9 in their overall ranking. So to see them still up at 1 is actually a big surprise to me.
I will say, I know that – I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think it's more in regards to how they think, obviously, they'll finish the season. Like, I think Baylor will, when they finish the season, they'll be right there to possibly be a 1 seed. But yeah, I get what you mean. It's like they fell right where they are.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I think by a season end, they very well might be a 1 seed. But to me, if Joe Lunardi is updating this, I mean, at this point in the season, he usually updates it pretty close.
Yeah, we're almost a daily now.
You would think he'd be doing – you'd think he'd be updating it, like, based off what's happening the night before rather than what might happen the last game of the season. I agree with you. I'm not saying Baylor's not good. I think
Baylor's a phenomenal team.
I had a chance to see them live. They're a very fun team to watch. And I think they are one of the most talented teams, especially when they're clicking. And I get they were missing some guys at times this year. But, again, to me, it's based off of what have you done lately. And that's what I'm not moving them down to 5. I'm moving them down to 2. But I think that one surprised me. And then I think it's great to see Big East getting credit. I mean, obviously it's nowhere near and never will be what it used to be. But the fact that they finally got seven teams back, hopefully if things continue to go well in that conference, the Big East is getting back to what it used to be, or at least as close as it's going to be able to get there. I mean, that's 70% of your conference, 7 of the 10 teams that would make it there. So if they're able to maintain that, I think that'd be pretty cool to see just from an old Big East fan standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fun to talk about always when we get to bracketology. One team that I'm always going to talk about, I love mid-majors. I will always talk about them till the day I die. Murray State being a 10 seed, look out for them again, folks.
Absolutely.
Murray State's always one to look out for. Loyola Chicago has become a household name. They're a 10 seed currently as well. Matched up currently with Iowa State, actually, in the first round. That's never a good draw. But there's one I want to talk about in particular, and it's little old Iona. Now, if you're probably thinking about the Gales, why in the world are we talking about Iona? You may not know where they are. They're in New York. They make the tournament almost every year, and they've got one Rick Pitino coaching them. That's something you can't say about most mid-majors. And with a draw against Marquette, that's a favorable matchup for the Gales. I wouldn't be surprised to see them keep it close with the Shaka Smart-led Golden Eagles.
It's like when it comes to the mid-majors team, especially if you're having to play them in the first or second round, Like, do not underestimate them because they will get you.
And another one to kind of talk about, I know we mentioned the representation. How about 4 teams from the West Coast Conference? That's Gonzaga, that's BYU, that's St. Mary's. And you want to know who the mystery team is? You want to know? You really want to know? Do you? I'm stalling for time here. I can't actually find their name on the list. This is quite.
I think it's San Francisco. Did you say?
It is San Francisco. Yeah. That is correct. Good job. Good observational skills.
It's like the first, sorry to cut you off right here, but it's like the first 3 teams kind of more expected.
You expect them to be there.
Those 3, but San Francisco, that's actually surprising.
The Dons.
Here's the problem with teams like those, though, is when it comes to championship week, when you have a team that you don't expect to win the championship, the conference championship, and there's always 2 or 3 of them, those first teams that are going to fall out here are going to be those West Coast teams. Like
Unfortunately.
it's going to be, for whatever reason, if let's say, I don't know what team's on the bubble right now, but whatever team that's the first team looking in or looking out, if they go out and win their conference bracket, San Francisco is one of the first teams out there. So it's like that's what's unfortunate about those teams, and that's why I've gone in debates with people whether they like the fact that the championship winner gets to go in because it's not always the most right. But I'm a fan of it. But
I'm a fan of it. I think you should have to win your conference tournament to get in, and if you don't, the NIT for these smaller schools is not the worst consolation in the world.
You go make your noise there, make your turnaround there.
Now,
we'll say in regards to like for those 4 teams in the West Coast, unless you're Gonzaga, those other teams, I'm like, you play like in the Big 12 or some of these other bigger conferences, you are going to get clapped.
Well, BYU will get to experience that. They get to move into the Big 12. They actually lost to Pacific yesterday, or not yesterday, Saturday night. Yeah. I watched them lose to Pacific, who is 5-13 and had not won a game in conference play yet.
Yeah, so it's like with BYU, it's like, of course, I remember like I was on the Big 12 Facebook group that I'm with a bunch of other people from across the country, obviously, especially Cincinnati, Houston, UCF, and BYU. Those fans have actually got added on because obviously they're going to be joining the Big 12. I remember like one BYU fan was kind of brag. I don't mean to brag about our record right now, like. They had like obviously like.
I don't mean to brag, but did you see us beat Santa Clara?
So it's like
checkmate. We're winning an ounce.
So it's like when you see the record, it's like it's a really solid record. I mean, you only lost they had 4 losses.
Yeah,
it's like you're in the West Coast Conference. Shut up. You're in so people immediately checked him and was like, if you play in the Big 12, you are going to be 500. You are going even the 500 team in the Big 12 is still a deadly team. Which means BYU, I expect them to probably be near the bottom when they enter.
That's why I always say I'll never trust a Gonzaga team. I just never will.
I can't.
I will always pick I will never, unless something changes. But as of now, I have not, and I still won't, will ever pick them to get past the Sweet 16. I mean, let's just take, if they're going to be matching up with Ohio State or Texas Tech in the Sweet 16, give me Ohio State or Texas Tech.
I would take Texas Tech.
I would take Texas Tech.
I will just never trust a Gonzaga. And listen, partially, it's because they haven't played a hard team. And I get there's 4 teams right now, but look, they haven't played a real team since non-conference. And you can mention the BYUs. You can mention
they played Pacific.
Yeah, that's
and
exactly
Pepperdine.
You can play the
Santa
St.
Clara.
And I saw this on Twitter the other day, and I can't remember who tweeted it, but it was someone trying to defend them, and it's like, oh, they got the most March Madness wins in the last whatever amount of years. But here's the thing. Because they're so hyped every year, guess what? Guess who they're playing every year, the first whatever 16 seed they get. So let's say it's the last 4 years. There's 4 wins right there. Then they're getting matched up against the 8-9. I sure hope if you're really a 1 seed, you're going to beat the 8-9. So there's another 4 wins right there. So now you're really talking about the Sweet 16. How many times have they really gotten there? And I get it. They made the championship a few years ago, but I don't know. They're a team I will just never be able to trust until they find a way to join a better conference. And I know people hate when I say that, but
the thing is for them is that since they don't have football, they're not going to move to any other conference, which even though basketball-wise they could, if any of the bigger conferences were willing to make an exception and let them in, that's one thing.
I still remember the good old days of the rumors that Gonzaga was going to join the Big East.
I was about to say.
The Wichita State and Gonzaga to the Big East rumors were a heck of a time for college basketball.
You don't need football to go to the Big East. And if there's a way, they should go find the Big East with one other team.
Yeah.
And I get it; it's far across the country, but
Use the
somehow
money.
Creighton found a way in the Big East. So Gonzaga, I mean,
Come on
listen,
down.
you don't think Villanova would love to add a team like the Gonzaga to their schedule?
Yeah.
A team like Marquette, who's currently sitting as a 5 according to Joe Lenardi, they would love to add Gonzaga twice.
Or even a
Yeah,
Providence.
like these teams would love to. Because listen, I mean, I'm an old school Big East guy. Obviously, been a Villanova fan, so I mean, it's still fun to have some of them in there. But you're gonna tell me you don't? I mean, if you can add Gonzaga instead of DePaul twice a year, like a team like that, like if you can add them. I love their past history has been good, but not recently. St. John's, like, yeah, they got story history.
Georgetown,
but
even.
If you could add, because those are actually you think about it, the storied teams in Georgetown, like that's one of the 3 teams that are not in the March Madness. If there's somebody from the Big East that I would have thought would be a shoo-in, it would have been teams like Villanova, Georgetown, and like based off history. So the Big East would love that. I don't know what school you'd add with them, but if there's a way, I definitely would love to see them add to the Big East.
But definitely needs to be a school who is, I would say, obviously it's not going to be the same level as Gonzaga in regards to basketball, but if Gonzaga's in the Big East, then all the naysayers about how they have a weak conference will mainly be
They'll
quiet.
go away.
Yeah.
They'll mainly be quiet because the Big East is really good at basketball. They just take each other out.
One team you could add if you really want to do this, Loyola Chicago's leaving the Missouri Valley to go to the A10 next year. You could pick them up and just kind of yoink the A10 back down to an even number.
Yeah, you could.
I mean, they fit the geographic footprint already, being in Chicago, and
Yeah, it's like geographic, and they're much closer to the show the East
they can
Coast
beat
schools.
DePaul.
As I said, there's 2 Illinois teams that you'd get.
That's
then,
all they
'cause-
need for initiation, right? Just beat DePaul, and you're a Big East member.
That won't
So
take much.
I'm interested to see, and I don't know. Big East always prides themselves on they got all the private and Catholic schools in there too and stuff. So I don't know how that all works, but and listen, I've always I miss the old Big East. I mean, that was one of when those teams would go head to head. You had Notre Dame, West Virginia, Syracuse, all them in there. It was so much fun to watch, and I really wish they could find a way to add some top tier teams like that again. So if they're able to add Gonzaga, I'd love to do that.
Now, before we get going into the one game I want to talk about tonight, let's look here at the Big 12 standings currently. Kansas right now, number 1. Baylor technically tied for number 1, but as of right now, they're in the 2nd spot. They'll play Saturday to determine who is the best in the Big 12 right now. Texas currently sitting a game and a half behind in 3rd. Texas Tech tied with them at 4th. TCU 5th. Iowa State 6th. Oklahoma State 7th. Oklahoma 8th. West Virginia 9. And K-State at 10 currently. So it's been an interesting year so far in the Big 12 in that everyone can win, but everyone can lose. Kansas and Baylor obviously leading the pack, no surprise there.
Actually, I will say something really quick. It's like one thing we can say about, unlike other conferences, no one in the Big 12 has a losing record.
That is true. The worst teams record-wise are 10-10 with K-State and Oklahoma State. I mean, everyone is above 500 or right at 500. Everyone just finds ways to win games.
But continue what you were going to probably say.
Yeah, I was going to say, it really is an interesting time. You have 5 teams in the Big 12 that are ranked, a few more that have proven they can be ranked or at least play up to ranked competition.
TCU.
TCU could be ranked. They're 15-4. They're a really good team. West Virginia took Baylor to the wire last night. Baylor's not a bad team, obviously. West Virginia's not a bad team by any means themselves. They just make a lot of mistakes, but they're 10-2 at home. They'll beat you if you come to Morgantown. They have always prided themselves on that and stingy defense, but that's not really how this West Virginia team's been this year. K-State is K-State. That's all you need to say about them. They're weird, just in general. Most of their fans want to fire Bruce Weber, despite the fact that he could take them to the Final Four, and they'd be mad they didn't go to the national title game. That's how K-State is. They want that man out, and it never happens.
I think this conference and like you guys say, it's pretty much up for grabs. I mean, at this point, I'll save this part for when we get into the game. But Kansas and Baylor obviously will always be there. I think Texas and Texas Tech are right there too. I mean, we'll see what happens tonight because obviously that's going to be a 4th loss for one of those 2 teams and we'll fall back. But it's probably one of the most, if not the most fun conference to watch. There's just all areas of this conference. Anyone can be like Oklahoma State went on the road and beat Baylor in Waco. I mean,
that's true.
That says you mentioned Oklahoma State's 10-10. they find a way to beat Baylor at Waco, and that's one of Baylor's 3 losses on the year. So I mean, that says it all right there. A 10-10 team can go in and do that, and I mean, it's funny. It's always funny to me. Like TCU's 2 games or 2 losses at least better than Iowa State, but yet Iowa State's the ranked team. So like, it's always funny to me how that works out. Overall record, they got 1 less loss. So like you guys said, TCU can go out and beat anybody as well. And here's the thing too: is any one of these teams, if you throw them, I forget what Joe already had. I know he had 7 Big 12 teams, but the 3 not in there, obviously OSU. My guess would be Kansas State. My guess would be West Virginia.
Yes, that's correct.
If you
OU's in, but West Virginia's not.
Yes, well, West Virginia, when you look at it here, West Virginia is 13-8. They have a 2-6 record. It's kind of more timing than anything else. And that you look at some of their losses kind of came earlier in the year compared to Oklahoma. I mean, it's the big losing streak right now.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. Never mind.
And I think he had them at the first 4 out. I think I think they're the first team out of the March Madness.
Yeah, if you look right now in bracketology, they are currently the first team out.
So
they've been in at times they've been in and out. At one point, the Big 12 had a really good case to put 9 teams in.
Yeah, and honestly, if OSU wasn't banned, you could make a case for 10. Because, I mean, all it takes is if Kansas State goes out, and I don't know who they got this weekend or next.
They'll find a way, it feels like.
If they go out and beat somebody good, they'll have – OSU already has their big win over Baylor and everything, and we'll see what happens down the road too. But theoretically, this is a conference I really truly believe if you would throw OSU, West Virginia, Kansas State in a different conference, you'd probably be looking at them as a March Madness team. Like, I know, honestly, if you just throw them in the WCC – they'd be right behind. I mean, obviously, I'd take Gonzaga over those 3, but you can make the case where they're going to beat up on those other teams, and now you're looking at them 1 through 4, and you're looking at 4 teams. I mean, those teams, they could go out and play, but the problem is those teams aren't going to beat the Baylors and Kansas all the time. So instead of just playing one team, again, 2 losses from the top-tier team, you're going to go get 4 losses from the Kansas and Baylor. So that's where it kind of stinks, but, like, you could arguably, if you threw those teams in a different conference, find a way to get all 10 of those teams in.
All right, yeah.
You easily could. I think so. But there's one game I wanted to talk about tonight specifically because it's going to be one of the most insane games of the year. Texas Tech, Texas. Chris Beard's return to Lubbock. Fans have been camping out since the end of the Saturday game against Mississippi State in Lubbock. Texas bus pulled up yesterday night to fans swarming their bus, making them have to retreat and move backwards. Fans were just ready to swarm that bus and rock it over. They had some unpleasant bird watching to show to Chris Beard as he made his appearance back again today. That game at 8 o'clock tonight, under an hour and a half away from United Supermarket Arena, is what it still is called. I almost messed that up, I thought, but I did not. But Texas Tech, 4.5-point favorites. This is going to be a grand game. This is one you watch the first 5 minutes of, even if you don't want to. Just the first time they show Texas just introducing everyone, this is going to be a loud game.
I will say as long as the game can get on there instead of getting moved to another channel.
Yeah. That is the only problem with it, though, is you're going to have to make sure that Michigan State, Maryland ends on time. I think it's on track right now. Other big game in the Big 12, Kansas at Iowa State. Kansas up 23-14 right now at Hilton Coliseum. So it'll be interesting to see. This game, I have been looking forward to it. Texas Tech fans, as you can see, the lowest ticket today was $842. People have been waiting for this for a long time.
They want to obviously they want payback.
They want revenge.
Especially, it's like the thing is with Chris Beard. I understand Texas alumni. I understand why he left for Tech. He wanted to go coach for Texas because he wanted to coach for his alma mater. But the thing was, Texas Tech, I think a year prior, extended him. Like they gave him a huge extension to keep him. Which I think was after the national title game. They gave him a huge extension. Stayed only 1 more year and then bailed as soon as the job opened up.
Yep.
In Texas. I'm like, it's one thing is if your contract is near the end and you're like, okay, I want to move on. That's one thing, but you just got extended and it was a huge contract that you took. Now, for granted, yeah, he left, so that money is now void because he was getting more money at Texas. But it's like it just felt like an act of betrayal because you left a team, you left them high and dry. Fortunately for Tech, they didn't get left high and dry. The coach that came in and the recruits they were able to pick up or any transfers they picked up have been playing very well.
Yeah, so when you're able to just slide your assistant into the head coach role and Mark Adams takes over, who many thought was going to go to Austin with Chris Beard, but thankfully for Tech fans, it did not happen. They've been able to continue to get this team up and rolling, and just a really good Texas Tech team.
Because I think the initial stance I took as soon as Chris Beard left, I'm like, Tech is going to go back to being mediocre. Like the years after Bob Knight left, Tech wasn't real. Well, Tech was always hard to play at their place. They were never that great on the road. They were always meh. But now it's like, I was thinking, they're going to go back to that, and then it's like, no, they're still good.
Hey, we got breaking news, by the way. Jim Harbaugh is expected to leave Michigan to sign with the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, my God.
Confirmed with Chris Bayless, who is a Michigan insider, senior editor at thewolverine.com. This is expected. Michigan is more than likely going to be on the search for a new man.
I'd be looking at either Brian Flores or Matt Rule, but I know Brian would like another NFL job.
Yeah.
I'd probably be keeping your options open for college.
Yeah, this is going to be really interesting.
Oh, my goodness.
My goodness. So he got his one win over Ohio State and decided, I want no more of that business. No more of this. We're going back to the NFL. I knew they'd said he had a desire to win a Super Bowl, and that was one of the main things that they thought could drive him into the NFL job. But it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen there.
Oh, man.
What's crazy about, too, is the interview was supposed to be tomorrow. So
he's going to sign during the – they're going to ask him, do you want to sign?
Yes,
like you're hired.
Over-the-phone interview or something like that.
Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen there, but that completely changes a lot for –
Not going to lie, I always thought Harbaugh was a better NFL coach than he was a college coach. Like, I understand it's like because a lot of the guys that he got when he went to Frisco, those were all his guys.
Yeah.
And they almost won a Super Bowl.
I think so. I think he's more of an X's and O's guy than a recruiter personally.
I don't think he's a good recruiter. So I don't think he got the talent.
He was able to win, but you could tell when you had to start like John O'Corn for your big games, that was not going to work. I mean, he had some games where it was really close, but at the end of the day, talent you're able to recruit is going to beat you out in the college game.
And I know I did say Brian Flores, but if Matt Rule doesn't want to be in Carolina anymore, or at least is more desiring to go back to college, that's a guy you want to go get.
Yeah.
Especially he can recruit.
Yeah, so it will be interesting for sure to see what's going on there. But we have really covered it all today. We've gone through the NFL. We've gone through college, whether it be football or basketball. We've talked professional basketball. We've talked a whole lot. The only thing left to say, really, is be safe out there. I know there's a winter storm expected to come in for anyone listening here in the state of Oklahoma. We've got, and really almost all over America. I mean, it's going to be a wide storm going from Oklahoma and Texas all the way up to Illinois and Indiana and up the upper Midwest. So wherever you are, be safe out there the next few days. But for Andrew Santangelo, for Connor Gray, I'm Cade Kennedy saying have an excellent, hopefully safe, and that everything goes well. Of all things, have a great evening. Have a great week. We may be back here Friday, Josh and I, for an episode of Bottom of the Barrel, our new show, watching bad movies and having fun of them. That is weather permitting Friday. Don't really know what's going to happen there, but for all three of us, at least for tonight, have a good week, everybody.